Hello, everybody. Hi, good afternoon. Hello, everybody. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Nidhi, and I'm from PayBee. I'm one of the founders of PayBee. It's so good to see you all today. My background, I'm a computer engineer by background. I've done my master's and bachelor's at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and I've been working at a whole bunch of tech companies, small and large. I guess one of the most interesting ones would probably be Microsoft, where I build speech functionality for Siri-like stuff for Windows devices and for Xbox. And then I've been a part of PayBee now for a few years. It's been a fun journey. We're very excited to see you all working with nonprofits and watching, I guess, all the virtual galas that happened last year. It feels like I've been on the front seat. Personally, I've watched over 200 galas, and at this point, it's kind of becoming apparent to know what's working and what's not working, and we're very excited to have this session for all of you today. So let's see, virtual exposed. So our guest speaker today is Keith, and a lot of you might know him. He's a very, I guess, effective auctioneer. He has an MBA. He's worked at the big 5 consulting companies. He told me a whole bunch of stuff about his background. What I found most interesting and what I picked up from what he was saying is his can-do attitude. It seems like through all his experience, he's like, oh, I can do that. Let me try that out. And, he brings all these amazing stories to, his events and everything that he does, which I find most interesting. Over the last year, we've been working with him on, refining virtual experiences and technology to support virtual events. And he's been very hands-on, trying things out, working with us to put up a fantastic experience. So I'd like to welcome Keith.
Fantastic, Nidhi. Hi, thanks so much for having me. And everybody, thank you so much for joining. This is great. I think a lot of people have watched a lot of how to do virtual events, kind of nuts and bolts events last year. And so this year, Nidhi and I were chatting. We really wanted to put something together for sort of what's next. What did we see last year that worked? What's not working? And kind of how we kind of moving forward now that we know what we know. And so anyway, so thanks for having me, and thanks everybody for joining us. Looking forward to this.
Great, awesome. Let's get started. So again, why virtual galas, right? What we've been seeing is a very effective channel to fundraise, especially with all the changes in our world right now. Virtual galas is seeming to be very successful. Obviously, you do have your cost savings from like the venue and meals and all that, which you don't have anymore. And I think my most favorite part about virtual galas is the ability to expand your audience. So now you're not just limited to, hey, what's the seating capacity in the room? And I can only fit 200 people. Now it's like, call everybody, call your uncles and aunts and friends and, your friends from the other coast and everything. Call everybody over. So virtual galas have been pretty amazing. And Keith, what are your thoughts? Do you think they still work?
Yeah, well, that's kind of the big question, right? That everybody's asking is, I think a lot of my clients are saying, all right, so we've seen virtual auctions, we've seen good ones and bad ones, and do they still work? Are people burned out? And I guess my take on that is they work, but they have to be done right. I don't think burnout's the problem. I think bad events are the problem. And if people are when you see a bad event, kind of the natural instinct to say, oh, people are burned out on virtual events. I think that's not the case at all. I think if they're done right, they can be done really well. Sponsors are still sponsoring, donors are donating, and patrons still have money to give. I think we're really seeing a bifurcation of the economy, frankly. As much as there's some bad news out there with COVID, and obviously a lot of people are really hurting, and we need to be sensitive to that. There's a lot of people who are doing really well, particularly a lot of folks who are the types of folks who go to fundraising events. And so those people will come, we'll kind of talk through this a little more as we progress here. But I think for those folks, they're going to be given somewhere. So if you need money, if you need to raise money, might as well have them give it to you than somebody else. So that's kind of how we do it.
So how does an organization decide if a virtual event is for them, Keith?
Sure. So we've kind of noted down that there's really two questions that I think people need to ask. And the first one is, do you have impassioned supporters? I feel like there's really a couple reasons why people attend events. I think people either attend events because they really feel strongly about the mission. They really want to help. They feel strongly about what you're doing, or they're there for the party. And I'm talking about in-person events, kind of historically. And for folks who are the folks who are thinking about is there that they want to attend for the party. I think we need to, I think a lot of those folks are there for the, is it an industry event? Is it a golf event? Is it an amazing event? What kind of we're seeing is, virtual events work a lot better when you have impassioned supporters. People are going to show up. If they, you need to ask yourself, are people showing up for a party, or are they showing up because they support our organization? And every event is sort of some of both. But I think some events, people are really showing up more for the party. And I think that's a lot harder to get those people to virtual events. And the second part is, do you have the commitment as an organization to do the necessary work? Virtual events are going to take a little bit more work. If you have the time and the commitment to do that, it can be super duper successful. But if you don't, then it's going to be hard. Just being totally truthful, we've done now 60 events through the end of last year. And about, the overwhelming majority were successful. Some have been, it's kind of a bell curve, right? Most have been successful. Some have been wildly crazy successful. And we've done a few that have been, I would say, difficult. And the difficult ones were definitely either because, the in-person event had been all about the party, and they just, the supporters, the people who had come to the party just didn't show up online, or the team, frankly, wasn't willing to do the work. And so so if you can do those two things, we can virtually guarantee you a good event. That's what we found.
Yeah. I mean, thinking about just an event, right? I think Keith and I both agree that pretty much there are three parts to an event. So one is the donors themselves, and most important part of your gala. Second is the content that you're going to put in front of them, and that's a combination of the auction that you're running, the fund in need, entertainment, all those things fall under content. Then third part is the team that's going to be running the event, and both of us are going to be focusing on all these three aspects and then giving you our views. Keith will be covering it from his perspective, where he's seen multiple auctions and fundraisers being run, and I'm going to talk about it from the technology standpoint. That's how we're going to break up rest of our presentation. So, all right. So moving on to the first one, donors. Right. Again, most critical part about any event, and the hardest thing is getting them to attend. And Keith, think about it. I'm going to be asking you some questions about that. Right. So getting them to show up is the hardest part. Once they are, you can have a good show for them, and then make sure they have an enjoyable experience, which is, again, a combination of the technology and how easy it is to use, as well as the content that you put up. So moving on to you, Keith, what do you think are the three most successful things that you've seen at virtual events from, donor standpoint?
I think you're right, Nidhi. I think that does focus around the donors. And we always say there's really three things you have to do. You've got to get your donors to register in the first place. You got to get them to attend, and you got to get them to stay. And when we started doing this, it was interesting. Everybody was so worried that people weren't going to stay, right? There was all this talk about how, people come and they leave, and you better have your event be half an hour long or they're going to leave. What we found is that's not really the case. I think early on, a lot of folks were showing up to watch other people's events and then kind of saying, yeah, I get it, and then leaving. The reality is, when people show up to your mission, particularly if you've promised them, hey, we're going to run an efficient event, what we're seeing is that people getting them to register and then getting them to ultimately stay is the easy part. We're only seeing probably approaching zero drop off up through the fund and need, maybe, you know, just a couple percent drop off through the fund and need. And then by the end of the live auction, maybe 5-10% drop off. But really getting people to stay has been easy. The hard part by a mile has been getting people to attend and to log on. And so I'm going to spend a bunch of time focusing on that because that's really the most important piece of this. You know, I think auction software matters, your auctioneer matters, you know, you're having good live auction, lots of good videos, all that is important. But none of that matters at all if you don't get people to log on to show up to your virtual event the night of the event. So we're going to spend some time on that. You know, just to tell a little story, that I only know one billionaire, and his name is Rob Friedman. He's the guy who started auction.com, and which is the most successful real estate auction company in the world, for whom I worked for 6 years. And Rob always used to say, if you can't see them, you can't sell them. And that's why auction.com was so successful, because they were masters at getting people to their events, both in person and online, when they made that transition. So if you can't get people there, none of this matters. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about that. So let's actually go to the next slide, Nidhi, and kind of address that for a second. You know, one thing we've seen is that, and this isn't an official number, but just kind of talking with a lot of other auctioneers and unofficially, it seems about 50% of your registered bidders normally show up to a virtual event, which is kind of low. I mean, that's I think it sounds like a lot of wasted energy if half of your bidders on an average virtual event don't show up the night of the event and don't log on. And I think that's for a couple reasons. I think, you know, we always say if you spent $250 on a ticket and bought a dress, you're going to show up, right? You're thinking about it. Whereas for a lot of people virtually, they're just either they forget or they blow it off, you know, or they're coming home late from Costco, and they meant to get to Costco by 4, but now they didn't get there till 4:30, so they're running home late and they just kind of go, eh. So, and that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. So I think there's a few really, really important things here to get people to show up to your event. As I said, I think that's the most important piece of it. The first one is you got to start early, right? So anything that I'm going to be talking about going forward, you want to start early, wait until the last minute, doesn't really work. And then going to the next slide, there's really 7 touch points, or they say that there's an average of 7 touch points to get someone to do what you want to do online. So I'm not sure if we, you know, in a lot of cases, we're going to quite get to 7, but it's definitely more than 1. So that's an important piece to think about. And there's the obvious things that you first got to think about, because again, the priority number 1 is getting people there. Let's go to the next slide. The obvious things we got to get, that we can do are obviously sending emails, texts, social media, welcome how-to videos. A lot of groups are being really successful with sending, just quick 30 second to a minute long videos. Hey, we got this auction coming up. Here's how to log on. Here's how to attend, especially for groups that have older donors. They want to make sure that they're comfortable with the technology, comfortable logging on. And obviously, PayBee makes that really, really easy. So that's sort of the easy stuff. The hard part, and if from what I'm going to tell you today, this is in my mind the most important thing I'm going to tell you. If we can hit the next slide, is we've seen that there is absolutely no substitute for phone calls. And what I mean by that is 2 phone calls. So the first level usually happens 2 to 3 weeks prior to the event, and that's what we call the high-level phone call. And that's where you have an executive director, a director of development, a board member, somebody high up and deeply connected to your organization. Give folks a call. Don't leave a long voicemail. If you get a voicemail, just say, hey, will you call me? So they call you back. Get your donors on the phone. And again, this can be for donors who are attending, or especially donors, folks who have given you money in the past who you see are not registered. And then obviously you're trying to get them to A, register to log on, and then B, commit to logging on, and C, to pre-commit to leaving you money. That is the most important thing. And really you're speaking directly with the donor, again, getting them to commit to attend and donate. And that call is usually something like, hey, Jim, so glad that you and Martha are going to be showing up to our event. Last year you were so generous. You helped us with your donation of $1,000. As you know, that money helped us do X, Y, and Z. This year we have an even bigger need, with COVID, whatever. Obviously, you explain your need there. So we're really hoping we can count on you for that $1,000 donation again this year. Can we count on you for that? And the main reason you're doing this, people think it's to the first. When I say this, people usually think, oh, it's to get them to say yes or no. People almost never say yes or no. They'll almost never say no because it's embarrassing. They don't want to say that. But they'll really almost never say yes. What they'll almost always say is, well, let me talk to my spouse about it. Let me talk to my significant other. Let's think about it. And so hopefully they will do that and they'll think about it. And hopefully they'll log, as a result, they'll commit and then log on. But what they're really doing and what you're really doing is letting them know that somebody cares and that somebody is going to notice if they're not there. The main thing we do not have in virtual events is that tie, that link that social pressure that people feel when they're in the room and everybody else is donating. They feel they have to pressure. They feel some kind of social pressure to feel that they have to bid. When you can tell them, when you can get them on the phone and get them to, let them know that you're expecting them to bid, I think that does a lot to just their mindset, thinking, all right, if I don't log on, I don't donate, people are going to notice. So we think that's really important. Hopefully that's the most important thing I'm going to tell you today. So you can go ahead and log off right now. No, I'm kidding. Don't log off. But that's number one. Then number two, I think you can have an administrative person or a low level for folks call the day of or the day before. And that's the second phone call. And that's leaving a voicemail is fine. And that's just hey, Jim and Martha, so glad you're going to be joining us at tomorrow's event. If you haven't got the email, here's how to log on. We look forward to seeing you there. That's just a real basic reminder, because a lot of people, particularly for weekend events, are not at their calendar. I know for me, if I'm in front of my calendar, I see all my appointments, but if I'm not, I might forget about something that I'm not totally engaged in yet if it happens on a weekend because I'm not in front of my calendar. So that's the second part of this is I just think those making the first phone call and the second phone call are really, really important to make that outreach to get people showing up. And our groups that have done that have seen 80, even 80% plus attendance at their events.
So Keith, from talking about a technologist as well as, representing PayBee, our goal is to make sure that you don't have to send out how-to videos and manuals. Everything should be super easy, right? So talking about like check-in. So yes, once people show up, you get them to attend your event, is to make sure it is super, super simple for them to join. Every time you have a large registration form and then it sends out a link and then you wait for it and then 30 minutes later, the link isn't come. If you add all those barriers from technology, then it definitely contributes to the drop-off. So we think that, the easier it is for them to join the event, we always talk about, hey, have one click button to join. So the email should go out, just say join, and that's it. They join. Maybe it shows them a simple form, like put in your name, email, and enter, and that's it, right? Make it super simple so nobody gets left behind, no matter what their technical background is, what their age group is. Nobody should get left behind. And then once they're in, right, have a super easy, intuitive experience. Like, again, everything that they need to be should be on there. We keep telling our auctioneers and hosts that, hey, just point out the green button to them on the screen. And as long as they know that they can take action when they want to bid or when they want to pledge, that's it. Everything else is good to know. They can follow the chat along. They can keep track of the bids that are going on, the activity. But again, there should be none of, hey, once you log in, do this. Or then to bid, go here and search for the item. There should be none of all that, right? Again, we like to say there should be no learning curve at all. So yes, from technology, we want to make sure that it is as easy as possible for all your guests. And then talking about checkout, again, this is what all you nonprofits are most interested in. Yes, people made commitments. You want to make sure they complete the transaction. So make sure they kind of check out before they leave the event, because all of you know that the harder it gets, the longer it is after the event, the harder it gets to recover that money. So at least from PayBee's standpoint, we've been thinking about, okay, how can they do a checkout while they're at the event, while the show is still going on? So even if they have to leave, they kind of complete the checkout without it interfering with your event. Right? And then the same consistent experience should work across everything that you plan at the event, whether you're planning raffles, you're planning the auctions, Fundneath, it's the same consistent experience. So it doesn't keep changing on the donor and becomes more about the show that you're putting on than technology, right? We always think that technology should support your event. You should never run an event, hey, this is the only way I can do. No, it should be, hey, this is how I want to do it. Now, technology, support me, right? And that's how we think about it. So then this takes us to the second component, which is the content itself, right? Like how you're going to plan your show. There are pretty much like three areas. I guess one is communicating your cause, and you can do that with a combination of videos as well as like live interviews, whatever makes sense for your organization, right? And then the fundraising portion itself, where you're actually making the ask, you or, well, the host, right, or your auctioneer. And then it could be a combination of a formal fundraising ask, and it could also be games, right? Like the Last Hero is super popular across all our organizations. It's a very fun way to get people to kind of participate while, well, they're contributing to your organization. And then third is the entertainment, right? People are all sitting at home, COVID, nothing much is going on. And if you're able to put on a good show for them, it's really fun for them. We've seen organizations bring in a comedian, have magic shows. One organization ran a live Pictionary, right? A celebrity Pictionary, where a celebrity was drawing and then everybody else was guessing. So again, get creative, think about what would be fun for your audience. And again, technology should support whatever you need. Right. So, Keith, how all of you running shows and what's been working well for you?
Yeah, thanks, Nidhi. You know, the thing I like most about PayBee is it's just so easy, and you can see here with 4 videos, you can kind of get it done. And obviously, you can have more aspects if you'd like. But the way we've been running the majority of our shows, just with 4 simple videos. The first video is the welcome and intro. We call that the Event 101 video. You know, and that can be done by your executive director, board member, or even an MC. That's just the welcome. Thanks for coming. Glad you made it. Thank the sponsors, kind of the housekeeping. The second video is what we call the informational appeal. That's the, you know, here's who we are, here's what we do, here's why this is important, here's how we're spending your money very carefully on things you care deeply about. You know, so that's not the tug at the heartstrings, but that's, we call that laying the foundation for who we are and what we're doing. Then often we introduce the auctioneer, just so I don't like the auctioneer to be coming up the first time you see them to have it be when they're asking you for money. So usually we introduce the auctioneer sooner, just to kind of say hi, and so that hopefully when they come back, people go, oh, I like that guy, or I like that gal. So introduce the auctioneer, and they usually can explain how the bidding works again, which is super duper simple. Then the third video is what I call the most important 3 to 5 minutes of your night. That's the emotional appeal. And again, all of these could be done live, but the reality is, another thing we've learned in you know, having done these now for 8 months, is most people, it's just so much easier to do videos. It's just videos are guaranteed. You know, they're the exact right length. People don't go on and on. They're going to work. You reduce tech risk. Just so almost anything you do, you can do in a video makes sense. And by the way, you can do that with an edited, you know, kind of more detailed video, or it can just be, you know, honestly, a lot of them are just you know, iPhones are so good these days, an iPhone filming some person talking the way through. And sometimes you can even pretend that those videos are live. I can say, now we're going to Jenny to talk about, you know, to talk about our special appeal tonight. Jenny, how you doing? And then she says, hey, thanks, Keith, blah, 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 you know, and she does her thing. And now, Keith, back to you. And then I say, thanks, Jenny, you know, and that can just have been a video we filmed a week earlier. So really, you know, videos make a lot of sense. And so anyway, so the third part is the tug at the heartstrings video. The third video, I mean, is the tug at the heartstrings. Most important 3 to 5 minutes of your night. And we always say that should be about the length of a Sarah McLachlan song. So, so that's the tug at the heartstrings. That's someone deeply connected with the organization who's going to, you know, a beneficiary, a client, someone deeply connected with the mission who's going to really sink into that, you know, and make sure that, you know, people feel something, right? Move the emotional needle. Then you go to the auctioneer who does the ask. From that, we transition to the what we call the last hero, or it goes by many names, the last bidder, or the runaround game, you know, which is PayBee has a really nice campaign for that works really, really well. That's one of the best I've seen to incorporate that. And then we go into the live auction. So we sort of do the money raising piece, and then most cases you do the conclusion and kind of the next steps. Make sure you cover checkout, and that can be done in a video too. And then that's it. So it's a really simple. You know, I think a lot of people are intimidated by this because they need to be converted. They think they need to be converted from an event planner to a TV producer. Really, it's 4 videos. And the other thing I'll say is I have a guy that I've been working with who does all this. Obviously, PayBee is designed to be do-it-yourself, and you absolutely can do that. Or if you want someone who's done it a bunch of times before, you know, we've done now 6 or 8 PayBee events, and I have a guy who, for a very low cost, can kind of run this all for you. So makes it really, really simple. Which leads to my last question that Nidhi addressed, which is the entertainment aspect. You know, some groups want to do entertainment. A lot of people have been asking. If you want to go to the next slide real quick, Nidhi. Some people have been asking if we want to do, you know, is it worth doing entertainment or not? You know, to me, a lot of my clients probably choose not to. You know, I think the main reason people are going to your event is not to be entertained, but because they believe in your mission. I think if you're going to try to be more entertaining than the internet, that's a tall order. You know, anybody can go upstairs to their big screen TV with good sound and watch any concert or any band or any comedian they've ever seen, wanted to see, you know, free anytime they want. And so I don't think that's why people are going to your event. I think people are attending your event because it's meaningful and they believe in your mission and they think you're going to be respectful of their time. You can go to the next, fill out this slide, Nidhi. But again, unless you have something unique, you know, we have a professional sports franchise. as a client who, could go to little breakout rooms with individual, with players, with the coaches. If you have something really unique or interesting, or if you're an entertainment organization, if you're an opera or a symphonic group or something like that, clearly you need to showcase that. But for most groups, I don't advise spending a lot of money on entertainment. And if you do, I think you want to get your fundraising in first is the number one rule there.
Great. Okay. Great. And lag. I know, Keith, you're dealing with it, the technical challenge, right? So again, lag is something I know all auctioneers and all performers deal with, right? With technology. Again, if anybody is telling you that there is no lag with their technology, they are not honest, because it's always going to be there. It takes some time for the data bits to transfer from the person who's performing or the person who's speaking to go to satellites and then get back to your donors' devices, right? It's always there. So the two ways to kind of address it is, one is to reduce the lag, and second is whatever lag is there and you cannot avoid, you figure out how to camouflage it, right? At PayBee, at least, we've been working very, very hard with this lag, and we've kind of brought it down to about 2 to 3 seconds, right? And yes, again, that was, a very, very interesting, long, hard activity, but we think it's really important, right, for all of you to put up a live event. It should never feel to a donor that, hey, I'm just watching a recording, or the auctioneer is saying something, but I took action and, I'm not seeing the impact of that action. So it's
Nidhi, I want to jump in there for a quick second. I think what PayBee's been able to do by dropping it down to 2 seconds, it really feels like a live auction, right? I can see the bids coming in real time, and I can really respond. And actually, I feel your software's allowed us to keep, to be an auctioneer instead of what we call a closing coordinator. Some places you have 10, 15-second lag, and then it's really like, hey, I don't know where the bidding is because there's so much lag. So just look at your phone and see. This is not that. This really feels like, oh, now John Smith is in for 4,500. Oh, but now Jenny's back in at 5,000. It really provides an auction feel, which I think is just great. So just wanted to. I think you're being modest there, but you guys have played a great job.
No, thank you. He made me put that point on there. Thank you for that. Yeah. So again, in talking about solution, right? Like how do you bring it down to about 2 seconds? One is pick the right technology stack, right? And you need a solution for streaming the video, and you need another solution to put it all together and obviously show it. And we recommend the best combination that we've seen is a combination of YouTube Live, StreamYard, and PayBee, right? And again, we will make sure that you get to those kind of results that we want. Second is to have an experienced auctioneer. So again, yes, there is the 2 to 3 second lag, but having an experienced auctioneer makes all the difference, right? Because they know how to camouflage it. Like an experienced auctioneer will never read out every single bid. Oh, and we have a bid of 5,000, and now we have a bid of 5,100. They don't do that, because as soon as you do that, from the time the auctioneer says it to when the donor hears it, there is going to be a lag, and then it's okay, I'm hearing delayed information. So they are very efficient at kind of camouflaging it. So have somebody who is experienced with virtual galas, and then give the auctioneer the right tools. Again, they can only be as effective as the data that they have, right? If they don't even know who's bid and where they are with their auction, like Keith was saying, it's just very difficult to deliver, right? So give them the right tools. So from technology standpoint, what we've seen be very helpful to auctioneers is, I'm going to show you a few screens, right, of our interface, at least the way we provided the information to the auctioneers. So one is a one-screen interface that, again, they don't have to jump all over the place. So you see Keith sitting on that chair over there and looking from, this is exactly how I've seen him run virtual galas. All the data that he needs is right in front of him, right? And, so there's a one-screen interface that he uses as well, so where he can see all the donors who are online at that particular moment. If he sees the numbers dropping off, he knows he needs to pick up the pace or change things up a little bit, right? This is the goal, obviously, the most important point, and keeping track of it, as you're running your event. Time also, because you tend to lose track of time, once you start talking, and you want to make sure you're on point with your time. And then just keeping track of the activity, right? All the bids as they're coming in, all the pledges as they're coming in, so you can thank donors, thank big donors, And again, this is the next point I'm going to talk about is closing auctions, right? What I've seen this to be the most important part for auctioneers, where they need to have the control to decide when to close an auction, right? Because again, from what I keep listening to them, we never want to close an auction too soon or too late, right? I guess that comes with skill and with experience, like when exactly to close the auction. So we give auctioneers the control to close the auction as well. And then that's about declaring winners. And then, so yeah, well, that's the auctioneer's interface. Now, next thing that I want to talk about is our third point, which is the team that's going to be running the event, right? Again, the most important component, and kind of planning out how you're going to run the event and who's going to be managing what portion makes a big difference. So obviously you have one person who's the auctioneer, who's going to be presenting and, running the show. Second is going to be the producer, who's going to manage all the tools and the transitions, making sure, like today we have Apta who's doing the production, and she's making sure the slide shows up at the right time, and the camera views and all those things. So she's managing that. So having a producer. And then the third is somebody from the charity who's engaging the guests via chat. Again, we think when somebody from the organization runs the chat, it is the most effective because you know your guests the most, you know their language. We had one organization which runs summer camps, right? And they had all this alumni who were joining in, and they'd attended camp 10, 20 years ago. And they were talking about all the songs that they used to sing at camps, and it makes all the difference in creating, right? Like the feeling and the warmth at your events. So basically, a 3-people team is pretty great in running the whole event, and that's all you need. Obviously, if you do have the ability to have more people take on tasks, sure, it'll ease the load of these 3 people. But again, at the most minimum, having a 3-people team is pretty comfortable, and you can run the event. So Keith, looks like you're getting bored there. And how do you? What do you guys do to put up a great show?
I've been bored for a minute, Nidhi. So every group's going to have their own process and stuff, but I think we've made it really, really easy, and you guys have made it really, really easy. Our process is really straightforward. Again, we have 3 people. And again, PayBee is designed to be do-it-yourself, so you can absolutely do it that way. It's pretty easy. But if like everything, any problem you have, we can solve with time or money, right? And if you have somebody who wants to spend just a little bit of time learning the software and doing it, they can do that. Or like I said, I have a really low-cost person who could sort of handle the producer role. So you get your auctioneer, you've got your producer, you've got your person from your organization running the chat. It's really very cost effective. I mean, and that's kind of why I'm a PayBee fan. Is it's extremely cost effective. There's no venue rental, there's no camera crews, which of course you can do. You could do that, and for some groups that makes more sense. They want more of a kind of a sound studio or a soundstage feel, and absolutely you could film that and plug that into PayBee as well. But to be frank, most of our events have been filmed just like this from people's home laptops, just because it's so incredibly much more cost effective. And that's what PayBee does a great job of balancing production quality and cost, in my opinion. And so really the process is really simple. Together we design a run of show, kind of figure out, all right, what video, where are we going to have video, where are we going to have live, where are we going to have slides, where that all goes in, kind of going back to the slide I talked about earlier. Then your team creates the videos and creates the campaigns in PayBee. You want to hit the next bullet points, Nidhi? Actually, you can fill this out even. Creates the campaigns. We assemble the show in StreamYard, which is that's the real-time video editing software. There's a number of different solutions there, but that works really well with PayBee, and it's really, really easy to use. So we assemble the show in PayBee, assemble the show in StreamYard, then do a couple rehearsals, and everyone's remote for the rehearsals. We run through the run of show, practice the transitions, obviously. 1 or 2 rehearsals, and then it's showtime. I mean, it's a really, I think a lot of folks with virtual events are still intimidated. And the thing I've really enjoyed about working with PayBee is it's just so simple. I mean, it's just really easy to do. We can just lay out a real simple process for you. And frankly, you can make it more complicated or more involved if you want, but it can also be just incredibly simple. We've had some very, very effective events with this level of simplicity. And then that's another good point is, we've kind of in this show, we're kind of talking about what's new and stuff. I'm going to post into the chat. I have other webinars that I've done on kind of more the nuts and bolts of how to really think about, whether you want, to go on, to go a soundstage model, or if you want to go a shelter in place model. I'll post that so you can look at that. But But I think this is, in the simple form, this is just such the easy way to do it. It's been really, really a joy to work with.
Okay, great. And now just like looking ahead, right now, 2020 is here. So thinking about what's next, right? And we see hybrid events as being next, right? What hybrid events mean pretty much is combining both experiences. So yes, you're used to running brick and mortar events in 2019, and then 2020 came along, switched to virtual galas. And now it's about combining both of them, right? So pretty much one of the biggest benefits of this is expanding your audience. If you can get everybody to join, whether they can make it or not, whether they have a sitter or not, and they can still attend your event and still support you, why not, right? So hybrid event pretty much means running your show in both formats at the same time. And what it means, when you put it into action, is providing the relevant experience catered to all users. Your users being your donors, your guests, your host, auctioneer, producer, spotter, charity team. And again, it's not a one solution fits all. You cannot have the same information up for your auctioneer to run the gala as well as like your donors, right? It's the same information shown in different ways. So at PayBee, we've broken it up into different categories, and that's how we are building our solution. I'm going to show it to you in just a second. And again, the underlying goal of everything that we've built is to make sure you don't miss out on a single pledge or a bid. Because again, if you missed out on a bid and you didn't capture that one click, you don't even know you had it. And that beats the purpose of fundraising. So make sure no bid or pledge gets missed. And very quickly, just our solution, and we're actively building it at the moment. We're going to start demoing it pretty soon. So say all of you, please come over to experience it as soon as we start running the demo. So one is having a solution for auctioneers, that they can run the show as well as have a solution for the large screen. Second is for the producers and the spotters and the organization staff to help run the event. And third is for the donors. So again, we strongly believe that the traditional format of raising the paddles when they're in person works very, very well. You should continue doing that, right? Again, the whole social impact, all that makes a big difference. And we also provide the digital solutions for people who are joining in virtually as well. And everything works just perfectly well together. And everybody feels like the event is just catered for them. And nobody should feel like, hey, I'm watching a telecast or I'm a secondary audience watching it from home. It should be like the event was designed for them. Right? And so hybrid, Keith, I know you've been thinking about it quite a bit too. What are your thoughts?
That's right, Nidhi. We've been thinking a lot about hybrid, and it's interesting. We probably have a little bit of a different take there. Or I guess what's interesting is that technology always drives the future, right? So you're sort of on the leading edge and the cutting edge trying to drive that. For me, I'm kind of waiting to see when they start happening. I want to see a bunch of good hybrid events happen before I start actively recommending to my clients. And I know we're going to get there, but I think what's different from what we originally thought was that I think at first people thought sort of hybrid events was going to sort of bridge the virtual present with the getting back to in-person future. And I'm not sure it's going to be that much as way. I think originally people were thinking of hybrids as going to be, kind of a way where we can't really put 300 people back in a room that fits 300 people yet. So let's get our top 50 people in a room and everybody else go online. I don't think that's what hybrid's going to look like. What I think hybrid's going to look like is at some point we're going to be back to fully in the room. And then I think for certain organizations, it's going to make a lot of sense. Organizations where they want national or international exposure, they really want to expand their audience. Those organizations, I think there's going to be ways and need for hybrid events where it's really a full-fledged in-person event, but we also have the hybrid, the virtual component is what I think it's going to look like. That said, I'm really looking forward to seeing some of these. And I was just checking out the comments up there, and my friend Don in Incline Village brought up that hybrids can be a lot of work. They can be double the work, and that's sort of the goal, is to get to a point where they're not double the work and double the money and all that. And that's I think what the industry and what groups like PayBee are trying to get to.
So talking about that, we are going to be starting a Q&A session in just a minute or two. So feel free to, as questions come up, paste it in chat, and we'll be taking those questions on about 2-3 minutes. So, okay, moving on. Going on to our final thoughts. Keith, I'm going to have you go first and talk about your final takeaways from 2019, 2020, and future.
Absolutely, Nidhi, thanks so much. I think, bottom line is, we need to keep in front of our donors, right? I mean, a lot of people were thinking, let's just wait it out. I know there's groups out, and for some groups that might be the right response. I guess what I'd be afraid of with waiting it out is, first of all, most groups need money. They can't wait 6 months or a year to make money. I did have one group that said, we don't really need to make money. And I said, hey, if that's you, then, great. But I don't hear that very often. And so for most groups who need to make money, the reality is if you do this right, it does work. And I'm always cautious too of, you've got to stay in front of your donors, right? I mean, a central theme of this presentation of really, when every conversation I seem to have with my clients is donor engagement, right? You got to keep your donors involved. And if you don't do something for them, I'd be afraid they're going to go elsewhere. People have money. I mean, people are, folks who are asset based, whose lifestyles are more determined by their assets than their income, which are probably a lot of your donors. Those folks, real estate market's up, stock market's up. People have a lot of money and they're going to take it somewhere. So I'd be afraid if they don't give it to you, they might find somebody else and then you've got to get them back. So I think that's really important. And I think everybody's always, if you go to the next bullet point, everybody's looking to expand their community as well, which virtual events absolutely can do. And then, the reality is, virtual and hybrid events are here to stay. I kind of liken it to when VHS came out, and then, VHS came out, and then DVD, and then DVD by mail, and now streaming. When each of those things came out, you had two camps, right? You had the camp that said, no one's going to go to the movies anymore, right? They're only going to watch on their TV. And then you had the other camp that said, I don't want to watch it on TV. I'm only going to go to see it in person. But what really happened was both exploded, right? With each new technology, VHS, DVD by mail, streaming, that exploded. But in a non-COVID world, that didn't take away from in person. I mean, we still break records when we're not in a COVID situation, right? Of more, record-breaking movies, and so they sort of drive each other. So the bottom line, in my take, is virtual and hybrid and in-person events are going to work symbiotically. A lot of events are going to choose to do one virtual and one in person, or vice versa. And and I think they're going to work symbiotically, and they're all here to stay. And we can help. Groups like Nidhi's group and our group obviously can help you figure out what makes the most sense for your organization.
Yeah, I don't think there is any going back now from where we are, right? And once people have gotten a taste of expanding the audience, like, oh, why not? Anyway, so takes me to my takeaways, right? Talking about technology. Again, pick a solution that's right for you. We keep telling our organizations, technology should never really drive what you're doing. It should be the other way around. Tell us what you want to do and we will help you achieve it. At least as technologists, that should be our goal, right? And then find a technology that fits your needs, and changing needs. Hey, yeah, I plan to do a virtual event, but things are opening up and now I can do it in person, or I was going to do it in person and now I can go hybrid. So as you kind of change your mind, technology should just fit in. And as you go and, look at PayBee, look at all the other technologies out there, what we highly recommend is attend a demo, because yes, all of us can, get on a nice video and put up nice slides and say good things, but until you get to experience it for yourself, you will never really get a feel for what it is, right? So attend live demos, try everything out, click every button that you can click, right? So how your donors are going to experience it. And as you attend a live demo, think about all the aspects of your event, starting from registration to marketing promotion, and then logging in, attending the event itself, checkout, and follow-up. Again, follow-up is something that we've seen a lot of clients think about after the event. Hey, there are 15% people who did not finish paying. How do we follow up with them? So find a solution that supports follow-up and can make your task and your team's task easier for you. So think about those things, attend a live demo, and decide for yourself what's right for you, right? Would be my takeaway. This takes me to the Q&A section. We're both happy to take in any questions that you might have. I know some of them questions have started coming in. Let's see. Carol's asking, will the presentation be available made to us? Sure, Carol, happy to send it out to you if you'd like.
But don't log off. Keep listening.
Yeah. And then Nirmala is asking that Keith said, hey, some events have been difficult. What do you mean by difficult? Did they lose money?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Give us all the dirt from the event.
Yeah, so 100% of the time, and again, we've only had a couple, right? And I'd love to lie to you and say, oh, they're all great and stuff. I mean, really, most have been, it's a bell curve, right? Most have been great. Most have been good. Really solid events. We're replacing all the money you'd normally be making in an in-person event. That's how I define good. We've had some that have just been spectacular. You're making 2 or 3 times more than you've made before. And then the couple, I can think of 2 really that have been difficult. And in both cases, they both had one thing in common and one thing only, which goes back to an earlier slide I had, which is just, you know, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but the work wasn't done to get the people there. I mean, the reality is, if you have 120 people register to attend your event and 22 log on, I'll tell you right now, you're going to have a difficult event, right? I mean, you know, like Rob Friedman said, if you can't see them, you can't sell them. And so every event we've done, we've had a good turnout, and that can be defined differently. I'll tell you, 20 people logging on is almost universally not a good event and not a good turnout. But for some groups, 50 can be a great turnout. Some groups, 300 is a great turnout. Some groups more. But if you can get the people to turn out, we're going to have a good event. That's what I've seen.
Yeah, no, that's true. And then talking about starting early, right? We have a question from Jenny who's saying, what do you mean by starting early? Is it starting early on the day of the event, or does it start early with promotion? And maybe with respect to that, you can also talk about the timing of the event, Keith. You know, what is a good time of the day to have the event, day of the week? Maybe you can address both together.
Absolutely. Those are great questions. So the start early, in the slide, what I meant by start early is start, you know, preparing everything, start reaching out to your donors early is what I was really referring to in that slide. I think if you wait till the day before, hey, we're having a virtual auction tomorrow, you know, it's going to be harder. Whereas I think if you both, you know, with your emails, your texts, your social media, get the word out that, hey, this is coming up, not ridiculously early, but I think, you know, 2 to 4 weeks, well, 3 to 4 weeks probably to start is probably about right. And actually, I'd even do a save the date earlier than that. But with your real, you know, here's exactly what we're doing, you know, 3, 4, 5 weeks out is probably perfect. So that's what we meant by starting early there. And then as far as day of the week, that's a great question. We're getting that a lot. You know, I think in-person events revolve so much around drinking, right? And so everybody, I mean, the reality is, not all events, but most of them do. People think, oh, people aren't going to want to go and, you know, go to a, you know, in-person event and, you know, not be able to imbibe. Virtual events aren't like that, right? And so I think a lot of people are moving to midweek. We're finding midweek works great. You know, a lot of times now on weekends, for an in-person event, people are going to be thinking, all right, all week they're thinking, oh, we got this great event coming up on Saturday night. For virtual events, I think they might not be thinking about it in that way, and maybe they're doing something else that weekend, so they're less likely to log on because they're not in front of their calendars. Whereas if you do a weekday event, they're seeing it on their calendar all day when they're working at home from their computer. So we've had a lot of luck with weekday events. Also, you can get cheaper pricing. I know we offer a little price discount for during the week in many cases, and a lot of other vendors do as well. So, you know, a lot of groups are moving to midweek events.
Yeah, and we've also been seeing like less conflicts with other things, right? I mean, more donors show up to these earlier events, so that makes sense.
That said, I don't want to see everyone to feel you have to move to midweek, because a lot of groups are still doing weekends, and, you know, obviously getting that work too. So,
yeah. All right. So Don's asking, if you're calling and asking for commitment, can't you just do this without having an event? Yeah. What would you say to that?
Yeah. No, I'd love to. Don, great to hear from you. I hope you're not getting too much snow up there in Incline Village. You know, the reason that people do this is the whole momentum thing, right? I mean, that's why you have in-person events, is because a lot of people, you call them, you say, will you give me this much money? They'll say no. You call them, you say, hey, will you show up to this event? You know, they'll say yes, right? And then the hope is that the event is going to be compelling once they see your videos, once they have a compelling auctioneer saying, my friends, this is why we're here. You can help. Once they see the other money rolling in, and that's what software like PayBee does a great job at, is showing, hey, everybody's bidding, and this person's giving $2,500, and that person's giving $1,000, that person's giving $500. The hope is that you get the people who, when you just ask them, will you give me money, might say no, or might say, I'll think about it, and then go away. Now they've got a place to go, and they'll get sucked up in the momentum. I mean, frankly, this is why I have a job, right? Is because both in person and virtually, you want to get people, you know, in the momentum and in the spirit, and so they'll donate where they otherwise wouldn't. And that's why you do it. That said, you know, I think still asking them beforehand is still a good idea, because it sets that in their head that this is what you're looking for.
Chat, one way we've been thinking about this at PayBee is to talk about the moment of inspiration, right? So whenever somebody gets really inspired, when they understand your mission, when they feel it, right? If you give them a way to act upon it, right? Then you're going to have a very effective fundraising event. And I think that's what people like you create, right? Is that moment of inspiration. You get them excited, they all bring up all the emotions, so that, hey, yeah, I love what they're doing. I want to support them. I want to contribute, bringing them up to that point. Yeah, it's hard to kind of do that on the phone, I'd say, for sure. All right.
Nidhi, I see another question here I want to address from my friend Carol. Carol, it's been a while. Good to see you there. Do we allow, or should we allow bidding on auction items online ahead of time? And most groups, depends on the group, but most groups are saying yes to that. And for a couple reasons. One, I think, the main reason you do your online or your silent bidding at your event, just at your event, is to make checkout easier, right? Because then when you're done with the event, people can take their stuff home and it just makes it easier. Well, now you got to figure out, if you're doing an online auction or even for your live auction, you got to figure out if you have physical lots, physical auction items, you got to figure out how to get it to people anyway. So a lot of groups are opening up their silent auction beforehand. Nidhi, what do you usually say? 3, 5, 7 days beforehand?
5 days is a good time.
Yeah, we usually say about 5 days beforehand. You open up your silent auction so people can start bidding. One, it does a couple things. One, it gets people involved with the software and sort of in your system earlier. And then two, it opens it up to not just the people who attend your event, but anybody in your whole database can go and participate in your silence, even if they, for whatever reason, decide not to attend your in-person event. So you have a longer time window for people to bid, and arguably, hopefully, more people bidding. So we like opening up earlier. The second half of that is we also like closing later. I think a lot of groups leave their, we close your live auction lots the night of the event, but some groups close their silent and even their fund and need maybe a day or two after the event. Nidhi, what are you guys recommending on that?
So we recommend actually closing it during the event, right? So a couple of benefits of doing that. One is everybody gets to know, hey, auction is now closed, and you can, do a celebration about the winners. Second is checkout becomes a lot simpler for donors as well as you as an organization. For donors, because everything goes into the cart, and they can close that as well as like their fund and need and whatever contributions that they've pledged, everything in one go, right? So you aren't making them do multiple transactions. And again, you're not following up as much as well after.
That's a really good point. Yeah. So there's a couple things, a couple thoughts. There's one, closing the night of, you're right, then you're done. And PayBee's checkout is so easy. It's just like Amazon. In the upper right-hand corner, you click the shopping cart and it has everything listed there. And then it does a really neat thing, which is it says, would you, the donor, like to pay the credit card fees? And so, a lot of times, like say they spent $1,000, they donated $1,000. That'd be $27 or whatever. I think you guys about 2.7%. That'd be $27. The donor has the option to pay. And Nidhi, what are you seeing? About 85% of people pay their own.
Over 85% donors actually cover that fee, which
so right there, I mean, that probably pays that little thing alone probably pays whatever probably pays what PayBee's going to cost right there. That little trick. So basically, the checkout's a super simple thing. And you're right. You do know that you're checked out the night of. The one thing that some groups are choosing to do is to close your live auction, definitely, but leave the fund and need open and maybe even the sound auction open, maybe another day or two. The reason being, then what you can do is you can take your presentation the next morning, blast the video to your whole database, and so say, hey, we had a great night, we hit our night of goal, but we're still looking to hit our overall goal, which is just a little higher. So would you please consider, if you missed it last night, would you consider watching the video and logging on and making another donation? If it's still open, then people can do that. We're finding some groups make even another 10, 20%. Just, if you've got a big database, you blast out your whole database, some single digit percent of them will actually watch it and decide to give you a little money because they'll be, re-inspired the next day or two. But I wouldn't leave it open for a long time. I'd leave it open for maybe another day or two. And that's the other thing that some groups are thinking is if you do your event on a weekend, maybe you want to close it on Monday at noon or Monday at 5 so that when people are back to work, they're back on their computer. Then they get your email saying, hey, we had a great event. Why don't you watch it here and consider making a donation? But it closes, you still have the time element because it closes at 5 o'clock that afternoon or whatever.
Yeah, one of the things I see, groups thinking about is like have something for everybody. Because again, donors have different thinking mentalities. Some of them just want to contribute to your fund and needs. Some of them, enjoy the gamification. That, hey, I want to participate in this auction and I want to see if I win. And, I got outbid by my friend and I want to outbid him. And again, so there's something for everybody. So we see auctions working really well. And what I've seen very effective also is that you could run something a month later as well. So there's nothing stopping you from just running another silent auction, maybe a month later. We have one organization that does silent auction every quarter, and that's how they keep their donors engaged. They stay connected, send updates about the work that they're doing. And run another silent auction on the side. So in different ways of doing it.
Nidhi, I see we got a couple questions here about timing. So I want to address them. Erica, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Asked how long are the video segments in live events? And actually, let me get to that question second. The first question, Carol, once again, asked how long should the whole event be? Again, I think keeping it to an hour is pretty important. 45 minutes to an hour is usually what we say. that's really easy to do. Maybe if your entertainment goes beyond that, that's fine. Because frankly, when the entertainment's playing and people log on, if you've already done your fundraising, people probably don't care. So that's probably, I mean, you don't care if people log off is what I'm trying to say there. And so, once you've already done your fundraising. So I think keeping it to an hour, and I think promising an hour is really good. I think people are more likely to log on in the first place if you promise them an hour than if it's just kind of indefinite and stuff. Because I think people can get in their head, okay, let's start at 7 and we'll end at 8 or whatever, and you're fine. So that's the first part. And then to get to Erica's question, just super quickly, she asked, how long are the video segments? Short, 2 to 5 minutes. I mean, each one is probably 1.5 minutes to 5 minutes. So like I said, your fun and neat video should be the length of a Sarah McLachlan song. So
definitely, people tend to zone out if you have very long videos, and especially when it was all everybody in the room, you could kind of still keep them engaged. But when you're on video, you don't even know if people got up and left. So you want to keep it entertaining, and you want to have a good run of show for sure.
Yep.
Okay, Sohini is asking, is the program currently using YouTube StreamYard combo? It is. It's exactly the technology we recommend. We want this to feel as live as possible, and we are running it on the same technology stack that we were talking about.
Yep.
So it is running on YouTube Live, StreamYard for production, as well as like PayBee. That's how it's running. Okay, great. Jenny is asking, curious to know the new features PayBee has implemented or improved since the pandemic. Quite a lot of stuff. I would recommend come to one of our demos. We're going to be putting up a slide. Go to our website, sign up for a demo. You'll get to experience everything, right? And we'll talk about all the latest stuff. And you could start thinking about, hey, what is relevant for my group? And bring your board on there so you get to try it out. Too many for me to say it all loud right now. I'd say come try it out for yourself.
It's been a lot, absolutely. Rhonda there's asked for any best practices for live auctions. Do you run them all at once or break up two at a time, selling lots? We can do it either way. We've done both. Most of our events are doing one at a time for the live auction. If we needed to sell multiple lots at a time, we could. But most events are running, one at a time. I think, and I addressed this in my earlier, as I mentioned on my website, I have some how-to videos. I have some previous webinars that are more the nuts and bolts of how to put together a live auction. I'll put those links up again. But as far as where was I? I'm looking for that question again. Oh yeah, how we want to do if you that's right. If you want to run 2 at a time. Sorry, I just saw that. I had to scroll around there to get to it. If you want to run 2 at a time. Most of our events are doing, fewer live auction lots, and as a result, we can easily, get through a live auction in a reasonable amount of time. We usually budget about 3 minutes, including description per live auction lot. Seems about right. So if you have 5 lots, it'll be 15 minutes. 8 lots would be 8 times 3 is 24 minutes, and 3 lots would be about 9 or 10 minutes.
Great. Erica's asking about going to fund a need. How much time do you allocate? I'd say come up with a good runner show with the team. What do you think, Keith? Like, kind of break up the time.
Yeah. So
minutes.
Fund a need. So I'm sorry. I was trying to go back to that. Say the question again. I was running back there.
Well, just allocating time for fund a need. How much time do you think that should be?
Yeah. So usually your video, like fund a need video, like we said, 3 to 5 minutes. The fund a need itself, probably 8 to 10 minutes seems to be about right. Usually you want 6 to 8 denominations, and usually 8 to 10 minutes will get it done. And during that time, the auctioneer's acknowledging the bidders. They're working to the thermometer. Folks, we're halfway towards our goal. Like that, they're referring back to the story. They're referring back to the mission. They're referring back to earlier things that people said. So it's really 8 to 10 minutes seems to be long enough to where you get everybody to bid. And PayBee also does a really good job of running through the different levels. Some groups do the all for all at once. Any level can be at any time. I like focusing people. I've had better luck when you kind of say, all right, now we're asking for 1,000. You explain, here's what the levels are going to be. So be thinking about it. We're going to start high, work down to the lower levels. Seems to work really, really well.
So related to that, have you seen, fund a need going first or auction going first? Which one do you think is more effective in your experience?
Definitely you want to run your fund a need before the live auction. In-person events, there's different thoughts on that. It kind of depends on the event, but we kind of, virtual events sort of got started doing the fun and need first. And I think that's really effective. Virtual events have really become, even if you're still having a live auction, definitely more fun and need centric. A lot of groups are doing, most of our groups are still doing live auctions. Some aren't, some do fun and need only, but most still do live auctions, but they're definitely more focused on the fun and need. And to be frank with you, fun and needs are the areas that we're having really good success holding the same as what people are getting in the room, and even in a lot of cases doing better. Live auctions, A, we're doing fewer lots, and B, especially with more expensive lots or items, it's harder to get the same price as you can get in the room, frankly. So we're finding on the lower price, meaning sub $2,500, sub $3,000 live auction lots, usually we can hold price pretty well. If your event's the kind of event where you normally have things that sell north of $3,000, we're definitely seeing some kind of discount. So, live auctions work well. They work as well as PayBee as they do anywhere, but events are really more funding focused, and as such, I'd put the funding first.
I agree. We've seen those be more effective as well. Yes. So a couple of questions about hybrid events, right? So again, the whole goal of hybrid, if designed right and built right, the goal should be that it should not be more work than just running it once. We envision you running the event with just one time the amount of effort and you having multiple impact, right? Where you're getting a wider audience. So it should not, our sincere hope is that hybrid events are not a lot of more work. We will show you soon at our demo, right? And Shannon is also asking, at hybrid events, does it mean that the bids are getting captured from the room? Absolutely, right? We see bids being captured from the room, from people who are attending in person, as well as bids coming in from your guests who are online as well through the virtual experience. So bids will be coming in from all your channels. The auctioneers should see all the bids coming in. They declare a winner who could either be in the room or who could be connected from home, right? That's how a perfect hybrid solution should work.
That's right. And with hybrid events, I think it's even more important that hybrid events are a don't try this at home, don't try this yourself kind of thing. I think the software and a skilled auctioneer who knows how to take bids from both places and make it feel seamless and make both the people in the room and the people online feel incorporated into the event, feel franchised, into the event is really, really important.
Yeah, this is, I know it's hitting 1:30. I'm happy to stay back a few more minutes, Keith, if you have.
Let's definitely try to get to the questions. I agree.
You have on there. Great. And do you see any impact of digital attendance when sending direct mail pieces? Erica, not sure if I understood your question. If you'd like to explain some more.
I think what she's saying there is, do you see any impact on digital attendance when sending direct mail? Basically, is it worth money to send direct mail? Depends on your group. The one danger of emails, it goes to people's junk, right? So you're worried about that. So, the thing about emails, it's, very cost effective. So, we definitely have groups that are still sending direct mail. I think that's client to client, but for a lot of groups, it does make sense just because, they'll get it, people see it and they recognize your organization, particularly to past. I think sending direct mail to new people is a total waste of money. I think sending direct mail to people in your database who've come to events in the past might be a real good idea, just because it's just another touch point, right? To get people involved, and then you cover anybody who might be at risk of your emails going to their junk.
Sure. And with respect to hybrid, Colette is asking, how do you create an event that can be attentive to both audiences, and how much bigger staff does that require? Again, I'll address the staff portion. At least from staff perspective, our hope is that it should not be any different. A team of 3 people running the whole show, production, auctioneer, as well as your team can kind of handle both components. And then you might need 1 or 2 more people capturing the bids from the room, right? As people are raising their paddles, somebody should just put the bids in real time. And again, at PayBee, we have a distributed system, so you can have multiple volunteers or spotters that are actually capturing the bids, again, so that you don't miss out any other bids. But
let me add something to that, Nidhi, real quick. I think my take on that is you're definitely right, Colette. There is a little bit more to that, meaning you need some kind of film, some kind of broadcasting, some way to capture the video in the room. The auctioneer needs to see some kind of confidence monitor so you can see the bids. It's definitely more work. It's probably not twice as much work, but it's more work, and there's more cost. Depending on how you decide to film it, right? And the key additional cost is, for a lot of groups, if you already have an AV team in your room and you're already blasting or projecting, to a screen, then it's kind of, they just put it up on the internet. That's not that difficult. But for smaller events where you don't already have an AV team filling, to put up on the monitors on the sides, you're going to need that. And so it's definitely more involved, which is why I say, don't try this at home. You want to work on that.
Yeah, and with respect to that, is Amy even asking about hybrid events that have already taken place? I'd say I think they just kind of organizations are starting to think about it. I think from PayBee, we know that our first client to sign on for hybrid event is in May. Again, it's been a combination of the pandemic, people kind of getting back in person, people waiting and watching, and technology being ready as well.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, I'll talk to that super quick too. I think that's what I'm waiting for. I want to see hybrid events that are working. I think, folks like PayBee are going to figure it out, and then we're going to be right there with it. But I totally agree with you. Right now, to be frank, I'm telling my clients, you don't want to be anybody's guinea pig. You don't want to be the first boat that storms the beach at Normandy, right? We know what happened to them. You want to be the later boats that come in and win the war, right? And so, so I think it's Nidhi's job to figure this out and to kind of, come up with software that really works on this. And then once there have been some people trying, then we see that. I'm certain we're going to get there, and we're going to see examples at work. I'm waiting to see those.
Yeah, no, sure. I think from what we've seen, same happened at virtual events as well, right? We had our solution, one screen interface, everything on screen. People are like, yeah, I don't know how it'll work. It seems scary. But then once you experience it at a demo, like, oh, sure, this can work. And that's exactly our goal. And we're going to
that's how tech works.
Yes. Examples of fundraising games. You want to take that, Keith?
Yeah, sure. So fundraising games, we haven't done that many games. I think a lot of groups, again, to me, are you trying to entertain your people? Or are you trying to get in there and support your mission? And because your event's meaningful and people think you're going to be careful and conscious with their time. Some groups do sometimes, especially if you're a school or a really tight knit community, people do push up contests, or are you smarter than a fifth grader, or and I'll type into the chat here some kind of examples that are are you smarter than a fifth grader, or karaoke contests or things like that. People that are doing more kind of incorporate everybody, entertaining kind of things. As far as games, raffles are tricky because obviously states have very strict raffle online laws. In the room, people kind of do what they want to do, and it's going to be fine. But online, you can get into, it's first of all, it's very easy for somebody who's 100 miles away or 1,000 miles away to track and figure out that you're doing something wrong online. And because an online gaming laws are federal, so you don't want to violate any of those. So we're really not seeing groups doing raffles as much, or at least not selling raffle tickets online. I think that's the tricky part there. So we're not really dealing with games as much. I mean, I'm kind of, there's 6 ways people make money at events, right? Sponsorships, ticket sales, sponsorships before your event, and then at your event, live auction, sound auction, fund and need, and raffles and games. And we're really focusing a lot less on raffles and games in the virtual world.
I think last year has been the most successful one that I've seen, right, from game standpoint. Okay,
I want to address something here. It looks like Amy was talking about watch parties. Have you ever done hybrid events, groups of people gathered at someone's home, participate and watch the event together? Thoughts? Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. So there's really 2 kinds of hybrid events. What we've been talking about is really the pure hybrid, like a real hybrid where you have a real group of people in the room and a group of people online. So that's kind of we've been talking about. We mean hybrid. What you're talking about there, watch parties are also called satellite parties, or kind of New Year's Eve style, where it's like, hey, now we're going to go to so-and-so who's at so-and-so's house. Jimmy, how you doing? And then, hey, we're here at this party. And to be honest, we've had sort of little iterations of that where maybe, especially because we're in the middle of COVID now, where we've had, maybe a few groups kind of informally have, 6-8 people over to their house to watch on their outdoor television, socially distanced, whatever. Here's the deal. I think that's overplayed. I want to see an example. Some other auctioneers might be here and say, oh, we did one and it was great, whatever. I don't think those are happening in big form. Here's the big problem. If I go to a party at somebody's house, am I going to want, and I start talking to people, especially after I've been cooped up for COVID for a lot of months or weeks, how likely am I to be actually going to turn there and sit down and watch the event for a 45 minutes or an hour on somebody's television? It takes a really disciplined host to say, all right, everybody now focus. Everybody, you must sit down here. I know you 2 are enjoying talking over there. I need you to sit down right here now and watch the show at 6 o'clock. I don't see it happening. I don't think most hosts want to be the bad guy and do that. Look, we do that in person because we shut everything down, right? People would be hanging out by the bar during the live auction if you let them in the in-person event, but we don't let them, right? We shut down the bar. You flush everybody in the room. They're sitting there and they're still talking amongst each other, right? But the auctioneer's up there. Hopefully people are kind of half talking, half paying attention, which is fine. I'm very worried about watch party events, getting people to actually pay attention. I like the piece of it where, they see everybody else bidding, so they still feel like they should bid. But I think you got to be very careful with organized watch parties. I haven't seen a lot of them, and I'm concerned. I'm a little nervous, frankly.
Yeah, I think from what we're seeing, the idea is pretty interesting. I mean, we're also waiting to see a very effective, run of a watch party, at least from technology, the way we say, we will support you if you have a fantastic idea and you want to run it. The way we're thinking about it is, hey, you have the television screen and, you hook up the event and you can watch the whole show, and everybody in the room will be connected on their own device as well, just taking action, which could be bidding or pledging. Again, you don't want the video to be running on the phone as well, because it's going to bring down the bandwidth of the main TV that's showing it. But anyway, if you do have a pretty interesting idea and you want to run it, we will support you. At least PayBee will support you.
And I think what you're talking about, and what we're talking about, is the one way where people watch and then they bid on their phones. That's, again, doable, but you just got to make sure people are paying attention. The other thing people talk about is New Year's Eve style, which is, you actually have a camera crew at each house. I mean, if you've got $50,000 and you want to do that on your event, I think it's going to be a very small number of events that can afford to have Ryan Seacrest at this event and somebody else at that event. I mean, if you can do that, great, but I don't see a lot. I'm not seeing a lot of that. It's just that cost and the technological sophistication in just the video part is just going to be overwhelming.
Sure. Michael is asking about the average event goals and what results have been. I can take it first. So again, we've seen our organization consistently to 30% more than what they set out to raise. That has been consistent across the board, right? Combination of bigger audience, all those kind of things. And we've seen organizations set goals from 50,000 all the way up to $1 million, $5 million as well. What have you seen, Keith?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is a lot of events, when you talk to auctioneers and they get real honest, gross is all over the place. So, and because gross is so relative to cost, right? And some groups, put on these elaborate events, they had all this cost and stuff, so a lot of groups, their gross is down, but almost everybody, with the exception of a few bad events, everybody's net's the same or more. And I think 30% is probably a realistic number. I haven't done that math yet, but we've had events that are netting 2-3 times as much. A lot of events are, like Nidhi said, 25, 50% more on a net basis, just because the cost is so much more cost effective. I mean, basically the cost of PayBee, especially if you've got people willing to pay their own credit card fee, is just the cost of PayBee is de minimis. You're paying your auctioneer anyway. If you need a producer, that's, super, very cost effective. So when you're not paying for your venue, you're not paying for your food, you're not paying for the booze, your gross might be is going to be somewhat less, but your net is, we're seeing overwhelmingly is more, in a lot of cases, way more what you're going to make, frankly.
Sure. Sohini is asking about people who cannot attend the event and how would they watch it later on. Again, this kind of ties into your post-marketing strategy as well. We do recommend you reach out to all your donors, whether they attended or not, and have the relevant messaging. Hey, you attended our event and thank you for your donation, or hey, you attended our event and if you'd consider donating, because they didn't donate, you can donate right here, and give them a one-click button so they can make a very quick donation. We help you process donations post-event as well. We focus on making sure all transactions get done in under 30 seconds. So once they hit the donate button, we make it very simple for them to pay via credit card, Apple Pay, Android Pay, checks, any way that they want to pay, right? So again, do post-event targeting as well. Reach out to people who you haven't interacted. Hey, we know you didn't make it to the event. Watch the show here, and you can donate as well. Again, anything to add there, Keith? Did you have?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with everything you said there. Yeah. And Sohini, good to see you. Thanks for just chatting with you a few hours ago. Nice to see you.
Okay, Michelle is asking, is it better to hold a live auction and actually call bids and close, or instead take time to only highlight high-end items, maybe call them premier, and then encourage bids and call out where it is at, but don't close it live? Close to say maybe 1 hour post event along with the silent auction.
Yeah, Nidhi, I'd love to take that. I mean, with PayBee, the former, what you're suggesting there, former, I'd close each live auction individually, because you can. I think a lot of groups, when your delay is 1 second or 2, and literally, like right now, I raise my hand, 1 second, 2 seconds, 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 1 second and I just saw it on PayBee there. That's how long the delay is. It was probably a second and a half, 2 seconds. I've got what I'm looking at real time here, and I've got the actual show up there, so I can on my TV, so I can see. Because there's no delay, you're better off doing a live auction. That's live auctions. What do they call it? The second oldest profession is live auctioning because it works, right? It's the pressure. It's the fear of loss, right? I've got so and so in at $5,000, back to you at $5,500, right? And when you can do that, you want to do it right now. Last call and sold it right there. It can be a lot of fun, and it's that pressure, that social pressure that makes people bid. So if you have a technology like PayBee where there's no delay, I would absolutely do each auction individually. When it makes more sense to do them, kind of close a group at once, or we're going to close everything later tonight at 8:30 or whatever, is when you don't have that back and forth. So it doesn't even feel like a real auction anyway. You're more of a item highlighter instead of an auctioneer saying, all right, folks, we also got this lot. We're going to be doing it. We're going to close it later. But then again, you don't get the excitement of the back and forth, right? I mean, the reason I have a job is a lot of people, almost anybody you ask, would you be willing to pay $5,000 or $2,500 for this lot? They're going to say no, right? But then they get in the hunt, right? They get in the, hey, I'm at $1,500 and that guy bid $1,750. Now they want me back in at $2,000. All right, I'll go back in at $2,000. That's what auctioneering is. It's getting people in the hunt. And then once they're in the hunt, they'll bid more than they thought they would. And that's what a professional auctioneer does.
From events that we watch, we see the activity raise as well, right? Like the amount of people chat, the amount of people are pasting emojis, it just kind of picks up during auctions, and it just feels so real, and people get into this mindset, and it just makes it a lot more fun. So, and then you're like, oh man, I lost that item. And then you'll have the auctioneer, well, he'd say, oh, Colette, don't you want to beat Amy? She's going to get ahead of you. And, that generates a lot of excitement, and it makes it really fun. So, yeah.
I'd love to answer Colette's question real quick. In a hybrid event, you can get the live portion done in it. Can you get the live portion done in an hour? Or do you do food and such first and then start the virtual portion? Honestly, whatever you want to do. A lot of groups maybe do some kind of pre-event. We didn't really talk about that, but a lot of groups, maybe they want to, kind of do a bifurcated start. Like, hey, we're going to start with the dinner, at 5:30 and the pre-show, but then our real show starts at 6. So anybody who wants to do the dinner, if you're sending them dinners, whatever, they do that. You can either make a video or play old videos you've already had. That's a great way for a lot of groups to play. Sort of their longer videos and stuff is in the pre-show. Have people eat that, but then we're going to start the real show at 6 o'clock. I found to be a pretty successful way. I want to keep this moving here. Don has asked, are sound auctions still okay to do since our small business have been hurt? You got to ask, right? I mean, and Don, that's a great question. I know you're up in Tahoe, tourism-based. A lot of small businesses have been hurt. I still think you got to make the ask. And some people might tell you no, but if I'm a restaurant, I still hope you're going to ask me for gift cards and whatever else you're going to put in your sound auction. And if I can't do it, I'll say no. Frankly, I know a lot of restaurant owners who love to give away gift cards because they give it away. And that means, first of all, half of them never get used. But the ones that do, they use a gift card and then they buy something else. And then they, restaurants are dying to just have traffic of any kind. So we're finding that a lot of folks, especially now that a lot of people are back up and running, are being very generous with sound auction donations. So I absolutely would not stop making those requests. If somebody says, no, great, thank you so much. And we'll check back with you next year.
Totally. There's a question that we missed earlier from Rosanna. And what have you noticed about changes to benefits of sponsorship? If we can't give our donors a table or a dinner, what organizations are offering to keep sponsors interested?
Yeah, I'd love to answer that. And that sort of focuses down to another question that I really wanted to address, which is, do we do our event for free? Do we charge? Should we, say anybody can come and it's free, just register, or do we want to charge for a ticket? That's a really good question. And originally everybody, when we started doing this, everybody's like, oh, you got to do it free. Otherwise no one will come. You got to have a free event. I sort of agree with that. But on the other hand, free implies no value, which, we did this free. So hopefully you found some value here. But, and actually turnout was really good. We had over 100 viewers here today, which was great. But I think what I've settled on, and Nidhi, I'd love your opinion on this. What I've settled on is I think having both is great. I think, the bottom line is you're going to have a way better turnout if somebody is paid to be there. I think it's hard to have them pay. We've had a few clients who say, hey, it's a $45, price for the whole family, $45 per login or whatever, whole family can watch, or $75 or $25, and then trying to get people to log on, so that you've already got some money and then hopefully they'll give you an addition. Frankly, I think for a lot of groups, that's a tall order. I think if I'm thinking, what am I going to log on for? Why am I going to pay you $45 for you to, for the privilege of you asking me for more money. So I feel like if you do want to charge for a ticket price, you need to give something. Obviously, food and wine are the big ones. Either you send them out or they can come pick them up. A lot of groups have, a $75, $150, $250, whatever, food or wine package that you get to people. And you'll find when you do have that, one, you can charge more and hopefully make a little money because the ticket price is more than the cost of what you're providing them. But two, those people are way more likely to attend. You're going to have a better turnout rate than you do of your free donors. That said, I still think you want a free option for most groups just because why not, right? But so I think the right balance is for most groups is having a combo, free and paid. Nidhi, what do you guys think about that?
I would add in one more category too. So yes, have the paid option and have your local businesses maybe deliver food to them or something like what he was saying. Second would be, hey, I'd love to attend, but yes, I'm not going to contribute or I can't this year due to circumstances. So have that category so people are still welcome to join and maybe they'll get inspired during your event to contribute. Third category should be, hey, I can't make it, but I'd still like to support your organization.
Great quote.
Right? So whatever campaign you set up for your tickets or whatever, make sure you have these three areas covered, right? A lot of people still contribute even if they're not going to come. And that was interesting for us to notice as well.
That's great.
So, 3 categories. Okay, very good. Let's see. Does PayBee offer production services? No, we don't. We provide the technology to run it, but we do have a pretty big network of producers and auctioneers who are very well versed with running virtual events, who are very well versed with PayBee as well. We have a good relationship with them. If you'd like, we're happy to introduce you to them. Just send a note on our website or anywhere, and we're happy to share our, producers in our network with you.
Right, and many auctioneers work with their own producer. Again, I have my own producer that I work with who's now done a number of PayBee events. He's great. He runs not just the StreamYard video side, but also the PayBee side, changing, all right, take this live auction down, put lot down, put that one up. Right now it's time to go to the Fun and Eat, he'll put that up. And, and we work really well together. He was actually somebody who did a lot of bid spotting for me as well. So, and has seen over 60 auctions himself. So he really understands, what my needs and what I need to work together. So a lot of times your auctioneer might have somebody who can do production. Again, very, very cost effective as well.
And I'd also say, again, if you do have your own producer that you're bringing on, we are happy to train them, right? That's something we do as well. We do hold these little sessions where we train your producers so that they're comfortable with technology. Not a lot of producers are used to running production on software like StreamYard or anything else. There are about 50 solutions out there, right? But then we will have them, we'll train them. We're happy to answer questions. Again, StreamYard is not our piece of technology, but we want you to have a successful event. So the way we think about it is whatever it takes for you to have a successful event, we are happy to help you, right? So we're there for you. Okay.
Perfect. And I think we want to be wrapping up here real quick, but I see Fred.
One last question. Let's take this one. Thoughts on getting members to donate items for auction?
Yeah, I'll talk to that. So really, the number one thing is ask, right? I mean, you got to ask. And that's something that our company does is we coach people through, I do a lot of board calls and stuff, how to ask for donations, how to ask for Fun and Eat, pre-commitments, things like that. That's sort of a longer, kind of, that's probably a webinar in itself. And so, but if you want to let us know, we're happy to, for clients, we're happy to talk through with their board and their members to how to ask for donated items. But the number one thing is just, you've got to continue to make the asks. And the worst thing people can say is no, and that's fine. You're polite. Thanks so much. We'll check back next year.
Fantastic. I think that's a great place to end this.
Agreed.
I love doing this. Thank you, Keith, for being here and being our guest today. We love having you.
Thank you for inviting me. This has been a lot of fun. And again, we're going to send this out to everybody, the recording, so you'll get that. And if you have any questions, obviously, why don't you put up the last slide, Nidhi, that has all of our contact info?
And definitely reach out to Keith. And then again, from PayBee standpoint, come attend one of our live demos. We have them twice a week. Just register for one that works for you. Bring your board members, your team on as well and experience it. And contact Keith. He always loves to chat and he always has a lot of wisdom to share. So reach out to him as well. And thank you all for attending. It was so good seeing you today. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
See you. Bye-bye.